So this video is my birth story video. As per, I'm late to the game and it's now nearly a year later and I've decided this is a great time to do it. So I finally got around to getting on with it. I'll be totally honest, I did not think I would be here making a birth story. A tiny bit about my background would be I've had a lot of fertility issues. So I've had pregnancy losses and struggles to get pregnant with help from like the fertility clinic in Aberdeen, and it was quite a long road. Anyway, one of the miscarriages that I'd required emergency surgery. It was a horrible experience, and then when they were inside, they found that I had a lot of endometriosis. I know a lot of people will be familiar with endometriosis, but just a quick rundown. It's basically tissue that's like the lining of the womb. It sort of grows elsewhere, so it attaches to the outside of your womb, your fallopian tubes, your ovaries. It can actually migrate elsewhere. Endometriosis, it's a long lasting condition and it's horrible. I got to see pictures of mine. So the surgeon came back to me the day after my surgery and he showed me all the pictures that they'd taken with the camera when they were inside, and it looked like bleeding ulcers. So, well, to me, it looked like loads of what you would expect like mouth ulcers to be like, but they were all bleeding. It's not a nice way to kind of describe it, but that's just what it was like to me. Anyway, so with that miscarriage, and then subsequent to that, I've had missed miscarriages, they're called. So one example of one of mine, I had taken a positive pregnancy test and I, within a week, was bleeding. I took another test and it came back negative. So the pregnancy hormone had dropped in my body in that time. The test that I'd taken was just 1 to 2 weeks, you know, the ones that kind of tell you how far on you were. So it was really early on. And then I had bled before I'd even had a chance to like make a doctor's appointment or get my head wrapped around the situation. And that's happened a couple of times. Scott and I had been not using protection for a really long time, and I was taking ovulation tests every month and I just wasn't ovulating. I think maybe I'd taken, for example, in like a year's time, I'd maybe had one positive ovulation test, and I remember specifically being at our old house and taking an ovulation test and just breaking my heart crying because it was obviously negative. I hadn't ovulated again and I was just so upset because you just feel like your body's broken and it's not doing what it's supposed to. I got really bitter, and I have done when I've had pregnancy losses and stuff. I've felt really bitter, and I'll be totally honest with you, I would walk through town shopping, for example, and I'd see girls pushing prams and I think, well, how's that fitting? So anyway, Scott and I had kind of given up. We just thought, oh, it's not going to happen for us, and it was fine. It was something I made peace with, and I genuinely made peace with it. I just kind of thought, I've got Tyler James, I'm happy with that. We've got Sophie, so we had one of each, we had a boy and a girl. So I just was quite comfortable with that, and I thought, you know what, that's what's meant for us, and that's fine. I had been off work and I had glandular fever, but while I was off work, my immune system kind of started depleting, and I was having to have my bloods done at the doctor's every single week. And my immune system was coming down and down and down, and they didn't know why, and I was having like bruises all over my body. I was just in a really bad way, and the hospital kind of put me forward to haematology thinking something's not right. My immune system depleted all the way down to number 1. That was like the lowest, it was right down to 1. So I was like super vulnerable, really not well. And at one of the appointments we were in with the doctor, she got chatting to us about, because we were speaking about endometriosis and stuff and how it can be linked with your immune system, and she started speaking to us again about fertility, and I was like, do you know what, I'm not bothered anymore. I don't need more investigations done to see what's going on just now. But she was really keen to find out why I wasn't ovulating, and Scott also was, because Scott he really wanted kids. He was dead set. I was like, no, it's fine, we've got one at each, and he's like, nope, want the babies. So when we were in the doctor's, he went, no, I want to find out what's going on. And I was like, well, that's fine. So she made an appointment with gynecology for me. She made a referral to put me back to gynae and just have another exploring. We were possibly just going to go in with a camera again. You know, they do keyhole and they can go in and have a look at what's going on. So we're just going to do that. But before that even happened, we fell pregnant. I was stunned. I mean, I can't even tell you how shocked I was at this revelation. So we were sat in the doctor's office and I was like, yeah, so I won't be needing that appointment then. And with the pregnancy, my bloods and stuff, when I was having the blood work done, because my body had started, obviously it's producing a lot of more blood and stuff to nurture this pregnancy. My immune system came back up, my blood work was fine. I felt super healthy. I felt so good. I mean, considering how rough I had felt for months and months and months, I felt amazing. Although obviously you've got your normal pregnancy stuff like sickness and things, I genuinely felt awesome. The negative to this was with having so many pregnancy losses and stuff, behind closed doors, I think the only people who knew was my best friend Emma, Scott and his mum knew that I was terrified. Like, just, I won't say it took me into an unwell place mentally, but I was certainly not in a healthy place. I was just, do you know what I was thinking? And I'll be totally honest. I thought, I'll have to terminate this pregnancy before I have a miscarriage, because then it's my choice and I don't have to go through a miscarriage. I won't have a loss again. And that, it was like, imagine that from someone who has literally cried on the bathroom floor when she's had her period. Imagine to then think like that. But it was absolute fear. It was genuine terror of losing another pregnancy, especially after wanting for so long. But with obviously the support and love with my family and stuff, and then having sort of extra scans, that really helped me to feel a little bit better. I think obviously it was difficult for Scott because throughout my pregnancy, from finding out I was pregnant up until maybe 26 weeks or so, I was just super paranoid. I was checking for bleeding multiple times in a day, and it was like obsessional. For the first few weeks, I was using the pregnancy test, you know, that you use, and it can tell you how many weeks you were, because I needed to see that the hormone levels were going up. That was obsessional. I was buying them constantly taking it just to make sure that the hormone levels were where they needed to be. It was just terrifying. And I mean, we had a scan at like 9 weeks, and there I was like, is the heart beating? Is it okay? Like, is it alive? I was determined going in that the baby was going to be dead. Genuinely, honestly thought the baby was dead. Same as the 12 weeks, baby was dead, baby's dead. And we had scans, a couple of scans in between. I get scans because obviously just issues to do with me, but as well, the baby was kind of growing sort of smaller. They thought they thought anyway that the baby was smaller than it should be. So anyway, the whole time that I was pregnant, I was just in a really nervous disposition. I only managed to settle down when I was about 26, 27 weeks, and I thought, like, if the baby was born now, it's got a better chance of survival. Like, with medical intervention, the baby would survive. So that's the only time I started to calm down. So what I did was I was like, right, I need to think of something to do to control all of this emotions, because I thought, I'm going to be stressing the baby out with me stressing out. So I looked into sort of hypnotherapy and like positive affirmations and stuff, and that's where I'd found more information on hypnobirthing. So we got in touch with Sono Mums, which I'll link the Facebook groups because they're outstanding. So Sono Mums, we got in touch with them, and we spoke about having some like one-to-one hypnobirthing classes. We were really lucky when I found out I was pregnant, because Scott's mum is a midwife. So from the get-go, it was like, Scott was like, well, my mum will be delivering your baby, that's that. For a long time I was a bit like, I don't really want your mum seeing my vagina, I'm going to be honest. It's pretty awkward. how will I be able to look at her in the face again? But the way that I got my head around the idea was, could you imagine how well looked after that baby and myself would be? Because it's her grandbaby, so I'll have, like, no one else in the world would get better care. So we had Carol involved in the whole process, and when we booked our hypnobirthing classes, we had the one-to-one classes over at Carol's house. So it was myself, Carol and Scott. We were really lucky. We had the amazing Georgina from Sono Mums, and she came to do some one-to-one classes on hypnobirthing. Now, this is a sort of Google search. So hypnobirthing, for people who don't really understand, this is what the definition is online. So hypnobirthing is a birthing method that uses self-hypnosis and relaxation techniques to help a woman feel physically, mentally, and spiritually prepared and reduce her awareness of fear, anxiety, and pain during childbirth. Now, I've tried like meditation and stuff before. I've had a lot of like cognitive behavioral therapy for anxiety and stuff, for example. And I've tried mindfulness and things, and nothing, and just never managed it. Like, I could never do the visualization techniques and stuff. It just wasn't for me. I've just never been able to like meditate or anything like that. So I wasn't sure this was going to work, but I'm telling you, when I say I was determined to do something to calm myself down and make sure that I was able to create a calm environment for my labour, because I didn't want anything going wrong. I had a really traumatic experience with my son, a beautiful labour. It was in the birthing pool in the hospital. Everything was going fine. I came out of the pool. I didn't want to give birth in the water. I came out of the pool, and after I got his head out, the midwives could no longer find a heartbeat, and my body had stopped having contractions. So his heart had stopped. I had to have an emergency episiotomy. There was loads of people rushing in the room. It was genuinely horrendous. The midwife had to put her hands inside me, sorry, shaky table, inside me like this, and pull Tyler James out, because my body had stopped having contractions, because there was no longer a heartbeat, like a pulse coming through the umbilical cord. And Tyler James was rushed away. It was absolutely horrendous, and I was determined after I had him. I was like, I can't ever do that again. For a good couple of years, I thought I would never want to have a sort of baby again. Anyway, so I wanted to do everything I possibly could to avoid a situation like that. So I thought, right, this is for us. Georgina came and taught us more about it. She really explained things in such an exceptional way. Like, it just made sense. She taught us about the fear, tension, pain link, how clenching your jaw, for example, is linked actually to muscles and stuff down below, and if you're tense in your jaw, things are tense down there. She taught us so much about how, you know, if your muscles are tense because you're stressing out, that creates pain. She taught us all about the chemicals that it releases in your body, your muscles, like the acid that it makes your muscles excrete. So there's so much goes into having a baby, and how important it is to be fully relaxed when you're in labour. Something that no one would think, like, oh my god, you're in labour, how can you be relaxed? But just wait. So Georgina had started this classes and stuff with us, and the first time she was trying to do a relaxation with us, and I'll be honest, the first time she was like getting us to kind of close our eyes and stuff, I just felt quite giggly. It felt weird, it felt silly. And Scott was sitting next to me, and he fell asleep and he started snoring. So of course I'm like, oh my god, this is so awkward. So I wasn't sure it was going to be for me, but I stuck at it. We carried on with the one-to-one classes, and it was just amazing. And she was able to talk me through so much stuff that just made me feel calm. It made me feel so much better, and it made me feel really empowered. I'll be honest with you, I felt super empowered. I had a visit to the maternity hospital, and I decided that I wanted to give birth in the midwife-led unit. It was outstanding. There's a gorgeous birthing pool in there. I knew I wanted to be in the water because it helped me with pain relief before, and it was just lovely. It's not clinical. It's a really lovely, relaxing space. The team are fantastic. Really beautiful space. If you're pregnant and you're thinking of having a baby, definitely have a look in the midwife-led unit rather than the labour ward. There's nothing bad about the labour ward, but midwife-led unit, not a lot of people even know that it exists. So fantastic place. So I had been telling Georgina about how I'd like to give birth there and stuff. And she had got onto the subject about home birth. And I was like, I could not have a home birth, because if I had a home birth with my son, he wouldn't be here today. Like, he would be dead. There's no way he would have survived what happened. So I said, no, I can't do that. Absolutely not. I want to give birth in the hospital. And she was speaking about the difference between being in your own environment and to be in a hospital environment when you're in labour, and about having your own things around you, and what it actually does. Like, it makes you release like positive, happy hormones and things. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. And she encouraged me to speak to, obviously we were in the specialist team at the hospital, so we're having really regular appointments and stuff for my pregnancy. And she encouraged me to speak to the specialist there and get like a debrief on what happened in my first labour. So we did that, and I felt better, because it wasn't a case of something went wrong with me, or there was no like shoulder displacement. Like, there was nothing, there was no reason for it. It was just one of those things, which was fine, because then I thought, well, there's not a huge chance it'll happen again. So after I made sense of that, I really kind of thought, okay, home birth, this is sounding really interesting. Now, to give you an idea of timeline, we are in December and my baby was due in January. So it was totally last minute. So Georgina came to the next one-to-one session that we're having, and she'd brought this videos and stuff on home birth, and there was one called Daisy's Birth, and I have never felt anything like it watching this woman give birth. She gave birth at home with her daughter, and honestly, I'll link it again into this video, but Daisy's birth was a game changer for me. I looked at it and I thought, I want that. That's my experience. That's what I need. It was just the most outstanding. Like, this woman gives birth like an absolute warrior. You've got no idea. It's insane how she has this baby. You need to watch the video. I'll link it and you'll see it. So after watching that, I was like, right, that's it. I'm doing it. I'm having a home birth and I'm going to be a total hippie about it. So that was it. We made our mind up and we spoke. So we kind of tailored now our hypnobirthing sessions to having a home birth. So we really focused on having like photos up, like somewhere where I could see family photos. So we thought, well, our fireplace room, we've kind of got a mural wall of pictures. So it's like, well, there would be a perfect place to give birth. You know, I've got all the family photos there. You know, we really spoke about having, you know, like, you've got your own pets, your cat. We have our cat and our dog. And we're like, right, that's brilliant. We've got them there. It'll feel nice having them there. We could have the kids in the house. It was just, we just really changed things up and was able to tailor it to things that would make me feel good. So we then had to phone the community midwife and tell her that it's 3 weeks before my due date and I've decided to give birth at home. So that was a funny phone call. She was awesome about it though. Give her due. She was really, really good. She's like, Sarah, how have you done this to me? Like 3 weeks before, and this is you decided to change your plan. I was like, yeah, sorry. So they were awesome. They got everything organised. You've got birthing boxes that have to come to your house with everything that's needed in there. You know, like your clinical waste bins, all of that. They had to speak to me about a medical box to go in the fridge, like a drug box. So for morphine and things, but I said no. It was like, I don't want that in my house. And she's like, well, no, it's really handy to have. Just have it in your fridge. You don't have to use it. And I'm like, no, I don't want it. Do not put that in my house. Because I thought, if I know that there's morphine there and I'm sore, I'm going to want pain relief. And I thought, but if I'm at home and I don't have drugs, like, I want it. Like, I'll know, well, Sarah, you need to just get on with it. There's nothing you can do because there's no drugs here for you to take. So I thought, right, I'll tell them I don't want it. So I explained why I didn't want it, and they were awesome about it. They were like, do you know what? It's your birth, your choice. Don't have it if you don't want it. So we got all that organised. Picked up the boxes, got them home, and then we had to have home visits to just make sure your environment's acceptable for a home birth. And this one midwife that came to do the first home check, I'll be honest with you, I didn't get a nice vibe from her at all. She actually put me off. She was like, you live really rural, don't like the road coming up to your house. You know, if you have to get transferred, then it's going to be hard, and there's a high chance that you or your baby will die if you are losing blood, because it takes too long to get to where you live, and it's really remote. The ambulance might get lost. She was so negative. I mean, she was even saying things like, if you've got your children here when you give birth. I'm not a babysitter, so we won't look after your children for while you get transferred. You're going to have to think of what you can do with them, and it was just super negative. And as she left, I phoned my mother-in-law and I was really upset, and I said to her, I was like, she's just put me right off, like I don't want to do it anymore. I was really deflated and disheartened. And I brought it up with Georgina at our next hypnobirthing class, and I told her about it. And she really made me feel better again. She refocused onto a positive. She was like, you know, don't have that in your head, because that's not going to happen. You know, you are going to have a beautiful birth. You're going to have the birth that you want. You're going to have your home birth in your pool. It was just, she made everything so much better. So we then looked into getting a pool hire, and there's an amazing Facebook group, Grampian Pool Hire. Again, I'll link them. And we got in touch with them, but we've obviously left it too late. This is now 2 weeks before my due date, and the only pool that was available, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, was just not a small one. For it's not small in any means, but it was smaller than what I wanted. I know how I labour, and when I labour I move around a lot, so I knew I needed a bigger space to move and get comfortable. So we had to sort of say, right, okay, we'll look elsewhere. And we did. We managed to find a woman who was selling a massive birthing pool. She'd bought it for her own home birth but didn't get her home birth, so it was unused. So we bought it second hand, unused, and got it set up. It was amazing, perfect, just what we needed. So we kept in touch with the home birth team. It's called Home Birth Aberdeen in Aberdeenshire. And I was keeping in touch with them, watching, like looking at everybody else's posts and their stories, and I just was feeling really, really motivated by the whole experience now. So we're leading up to things. I practice hypnobirthing constantly, like literally every single day, as much as I could. I was listening to positive affirmations and things. It's the Calm Birth School method that I personally used. It's a lady, I think her name is Susie, can't remember. I'll find out the information and I'll sort of tag it in the comments. But her affirmations just completely resonated with me. One of them that always stuck in my head was, now don't quote me, but it's something along the lines of, your contractions, like your surges, they call them. Your surges aren't, like, you can handle your surges because your body wouldn't give you anything that you can't handle, you know, and it's like, they are you, they are part of you. So, and I felt good because I thought, well, actually, yeah, I am in control. This is my body. My body wouldn't give me anything that I couldn't control. So this affirmations, I mean, I would be driving Tyler James down to the school bus in the morning and having it playing in the car, and having it playing when I came home. I would be doing my housework and having it playing. On my way to work, I would be having it playing. On my lunch break, if I was like by myself, I would be having it playing. I was constantly listening to all this hypnobirthing stuff and affirmations. I spent hours and hours and hours watching home births on YouTube. Amazing. And it is so, honestly, it drives you so much because you think, well, she can do it, she can do it, she can do it. And I just really got into it, and I was able to apply myself and think, well, I am able to do that. And I've got really low self-esteem, really, really low self-esteem. So for me personally, it's quite shocking to think that I had that empowerment and I was able to be like, but I will do it and I can do it. So fast forward, we're now at, my due date has come and there's no baby, and she's just super late. She's not wanting to come. She was born at 40 weeks plus 2, I think. She was like 9 days late. And leading up to that, I was getting support in the home birth Facebook group. I was doing all sorts of things to try and get my labour going, drinking raspberry leaf tea, smelling clary sage oil. All these things that can be done to try and encourage your labour to come along. I knew what I had learned, obviously through hypnobirthing and stuff, is that your baby comes when your baby's ready. This whole notion of you've got your due date, that's when your baby should be here, it's so outdated. Everybody's different. My sort of period cycle is different to your period cycle or her period cycle. So why do they think that babies are exactly the same? You know, women are different, our bodies are different, our babies will be different. So I kind of let go of the due date thing, and I was like, right, okay, no, let's get past that. The baby will come when the baby's ready. So things were moving on. Obviously, we get extra scans. I get one of the scans, they noticed that my placenta started calcifying. There was tiny little white specks on my placenta where the placenta's old now. It's kind of coming to the end of what it's supposed to be doing, so it started to calcify. And at that point, my midwife phoned in to the Aberdeen Maternity Hospital and booked me in for an induction, and she didn't discuss it with me. So the first thing I heard was I had this woman from the hospital phone me and say, right, okay, you're due in on the Wednesday for your induction. I was so stunned, and I was genuinely actually really upset that I had this woman from the hospital phone me to tell me my baby was going to be getting induced on the Wednesday. So I got in touch with Freya from the birth Facebook group, and I explained things to her, and honest to God, the support I got was unreal. I went from being hysterically crying, I was so upset, to feeling a lot better within myself. They were super supportive. They really made me feel like, hold on, this is your choice. You know, if there's no immediate risk to the baby or yourself, you know, if your bloods are fine, if your body, like my heart rate, the baby's heart rate, everything was fine. So they were like, you can make that decision. You do not have to accept induction. You know, it's your body, it's your choice. A lot of people, if a healthcare professional tells us something, we kind of we fall into it because we think, well, they know best. They don't always, you know. So I felt a lot better being able to make that decision and kind of say, well, I don't want an induction in that day. I'm going to try maybe having a sweep and see if we can get things going that way. I just want my body to get a little bit more time. So I tried everything, honestly. You know, the old wife's tale of have loads of sex. I mean, Scott turned around to me at one point and said, Sarah, I actually feel used, because that man was literally used to death multiple times a day. I was really going for it. But with the support of his mum, I mean, I had my mother-in-law texting me stuff being like, you get that sorted, you tell Scott you need him, make it happen, the sperm, all the hormones, get it done. So she was ace. I felt bad for her though. With her being a midwife, I was constantly harping on her. I was like, Carol, come on, give me a sweep. Go and just give me a little sweep. Go, please just give me a sweep. Poor thing. But I'd gotten a couple of sweeps from my community midwife, and on Sunday I had a sweep on that day. Came home, was drinking my raspberry leaf tea, was doing my hypnobirthing, was on my birthing ball constantly, and then I was sitting bouncing on it, and I turned around and I looked at Scott and I thought, and I said to him, I was like, I could be bouncing on someone else, you know. Too much info. And he was like, okay. So we had Tyler and Sophie here, so we literally sent them out to play. We were like, kids, go out and play for half an hour. So I got my wicked way, and honest to God, within maybe an hour, I started getting twinges. So it's worked. So twinges are happening, awesome. I was super happy because I'd had a lot of false starts where things were getting going, but anytime I laid down or went to my bed, they would stop. So I was like, is it going to be, is it not? So we went through to where our birth was going to be taking place. The pool's all blown up, it's just not filled. I had like my essential oil lamp on with lavender going, my birthing ball was through there. Scott and I kind of set up camp. We were really chilled out, had like more space. I was bouncing on the ball, and we were watching The Good Doctor, and then I started to kind of realise it was creeping up to like 7ish, and I thought, right, this is not just false start anymore. So we started timing the contractions then, and it was awesome. They were beautiful, they were super strong, they were doing exactly what they needed to do. I was doing my hypnobirthing, but also try to concentrate on the TV just as a distraction, so everything was working beautifully. And we got the kids bedded. We kind of said to them then, the baby's probably going to be here by the time you get up in the morning. We weren't sure. Then as the night was progressing, it was getting quite painful. So I'd said to Scott, I think it was like the back of 10, and I'd said to him, like, right, we need to start getting things in motion now. So I said that this is definitely game on, we're good to go. He gave his mum a heads up and said, right, go and get a couple of hours kit because you will be coming out tonight. And then we started filling the pool. So by the time the pool was filled, it was the surges were really quite strong, and I needed to sort of really focus now. I needed to get right into the hypnobirthing place. So I got my headphones on so that I could zone out. laptop was away, no more Good Doctor, headphones on, and creeping up to about midnight, I had said to Scott, like, I need to get in the pool now. So he'd been starting to get it filled. The contractions were always sort of between, well, they were kind of creeping up to like 10 minutes apart for quite a long time. I'd gone to the toilet, and by the time I came back, I stopped in the kitchen and I just vomited everywhere. And I was like, oh my God. And I thought, is that because of the pain? I didn't know, but the contractions, in the hypnobirthing world, you call them surges, but for everybody else, I'll say contractions. They were just super strong and really powerful, and like every sort of 5 minutes or so. I was well in established labour at this point. So I just went, Scott, bless his heart, cleaned up all my spew, and I just went straight into the birthing pool, and I was just in my own world. So he got everything going. We're ready to focus on this baby coming. So I'm in my own world. So time now is gone. I don't really remember time scales at this point, but Scott's mum, he phoned his mum, I think the back of one, and said, right, you're gonna have to come out now, because we were obviously really hoping that Carol could deliver our baby. So out she came, and when Scott was on the phone to his mum, she'd said to him, when he explained about my contractions and how they work, so I had an app and you count your contractions, and she went, no, you need to phone and let the community midwives know, like, that they need to come. So Scott gave them a ring. Carol and Stuart, my father-in-law, they arrived first. Scott was pretty shocked that his dad was there, because he is not into anything like that. Like, you would think he would want to be in another city when I was giving birth. Like, he doesn't do things like that. But he came. So he set up camp in our sort of living room. I was in the pool. Carol came and spoke to me. And then the midwives, they arrived sort of shortly after. We had a wonderful midwife called Therese, who actually Carol had worked with. They've known each other for about 30 years, and Carol had delivered Therese's baby. So automatically, we just knew this was going to be awesome, because Therese was happy for Carol to kind of do what she needed to do. I wanted Carol to be the one to kind of support me through and to sort of deliver the baby, and Therese was super good about it all. She realised that was what our birthing plan was. She knew that that's what I needed, and she had a return to practice nurse midwife with her. So she explained all of that to her, that it was kind of going to be quite standoffish if they could, and that I was going to be labouring with hypnobirthing. I was kind of in my own little world. You have to really focus, and you really do have to, it's like you do hypnotise yourself. So I was in the pool, my eyes were shut, I was just breathing through. There's a really good breathing technique, in for 4, out for more. So I was concentrating on that, playing my affirmations in my head while listening to a lot of my hypnobirthing stuff. And it did get to the point where it was becoming quite sore, and I was getting really uncomfortable, and I was struggling to focus a little bit. And Carol came over, and I was kind of leaning over the birthing pool, and she came over and she was like, Sarah, she's like, just remember your techniques. And she really spoke me through everything. I was vomiting quite a lot, so Scott's busy cleaning up the sick and stuff, but Carol was able just to ground me, because a couple of times I said to her, I was like, this is getting quite sore now. I mean, it's sore, you're pushing a human out your vagina, it's going to be sore. So she was able just to really zone me back in and like focus, and she's like, come on, let's remember this. And she spoke me through loads of the techniques that we learned through the Sono Mums hypnobirthing classes. A couple of times the return to practice midwife, she would come over and she was trying to like check the baby's heart rate and stuff. But it was when I was in the middle of having a surge, as she would say. So she was trying to speak to me, and I could hear her, but I was not talking back to her, and I wasn't trying to be rude. It's just that you cannot break that focus. You can't break that concentration at all. So Therese actually came over to her and said, can you come here a second? And so I took her to the side, and I think it was a good learning experience for her. And Therese kind of explained to her about hypnobirthing. I don't think she had any experience with it. And Therese had said how important it is to not interrupt that moment when that woman is going through that. Like, do not interrupt it. And she was really good, you know, she was able to identify when I was zoned out and when I wasn't. I mean, this whole time I've not been shouting or screaming or swearing. Anytime that I wasn't having a contraction, I was able to talk. I would sit up and it was just like nothing was happening, and I was able to chat away and say to them, this is how I'm feeling. I do feel a difference. I can feel the baby kind of coming down now. I was able to have these conversations and update them on what I was experiencing. It's incredible how different it is from my first experience. When I was doing the hypnobirthing stuff, we learned about feeling tribal and how you do get this really natural feeling to kind of bear down and to push into. A lot of women make a lot of tribal noises, and that definitely happened at the pushing stage. But we learned about J breathing, and J breathing is a technique of how you kind of breathe your baby out, like down and out. It's fabulous. It's really good. It worked wonderfully for me. So yeah, I was able to really identify with my own body. I knew what was going on, and I knew that I had to move around to kind of get into a better position for the baby to come down. I felt really pushy, and I was able to kind of say, right, I'm starting to feel like I need to push. And it wasn't long, I would say maybe 30 minutes, if that, I'm maybe wrong, of kind of trying different positions. My mother-in-law, Carol, she was able to say to Scott, right, it's time for you, go and get your shorts on if you want to get into the pool with her. So he came in with me, and it was actually really helpful. I didn't think he would, but it was helpful when he was there, because I was able to kind of wrap my hands around these shorts that he was wearing and anchor myself and really use him to push. And again, there was no shouting or screaming or anything like that. My father-in-law had gone up and got my stepdaughter Sophie. We left Tyler James because he didn't want to be part of things, but Sophie really wanted to be there. So she came down, and she came over to the pool, and she was speaking to me, and she was asking when the baby would come, but we kind of thought it would be a little while of pushing first, so she went back up to her bed. But it was really nice to have her checking in, and she was so excited. So I was trying loads of different positions, because I just felt like I could feel where the baby was, and I knew that we still had a little bit to go before I could get the baby here. We didn't know the gender of the baby at this point. I was doing all the different positions that I had learned before from Georgina, and I felt the change. I felt when I had managed to push the baby's head down, but then I kind of got a little bit stuck for a moment. So I was kind of pushing, and we had obviously the midwives were there, we've got their torch, they know the baby's coming soon. But I just didn't feel like I could feel her moving anymore. And then I did like a really good J breathe, and Carol she kept me focused. She was like, remember your breathing, breathe your baby out. And I did a big kind of J breath, and I was holding on to Scott. He was behind me, and then all of a sudden, from nowhere, the baby's head went boom. The head came flying out, and I got a scare, and I shut my eyes. I don't know why my body reacted like that, but I shut my eyes, and I was like, oh my god, I got a scare. And Carol was like, calm down, you're fine. She's like, look, your baby's there. And I didn't want to open my eyes. I was like, no. And she went, open your eyes. So I did, and I looked down, and you could just see this baby's head, and it wasn't painful. It's so strange to describe. It's not painful. Whereas with my son, I felt like I was giving birth to an iron. I switched on iron. But with this, it was so different. It was not pain, it was pressure. It was more powerful. It's so strange. Anyway, so baby's head's out. I have a little second to rest. I listened to my body, and I waited for my body to tell me what to do. And I just kind of chilled for a second, and then I felt it. My body was ready to birth this child. So I did the J breathing exercise and just took a great big breath and breathed my baby out. And Carol kind of grabbed her and lifted her up and passed her. I said to pass her to Scott, and they put her up on me, and Scott was holding her, and Carol, we asked for her to check what the gender of the baby was. We just thought it was a special moment for her as grandma, and she was like, it's a girl. And I kid you not, I was certain it was a boy for a long time. I thought I'd saw a penis in one of the scans, and I took a minute, and I was like, what? And I asked her to check. I was like, check again, like, can you check again? And she's like, no, it's a girl. And I was obviously delighted. I was so chuffed. And here she was, and it was just an outstanding experience, because I wasn't in any pain. I was in more like a euphoric state. I felt really incredible. Like, it was just, I felt really strong and powerful. I know I've probably used that word loads, but that's how I felt. My personal choice for my birth was to have a delayed third stage. So I didn't want for the cord to get clamped or cut. I wanted to birth out my placenta naturally and allow all the blood to come from the placenta and feed through the baby. A baby can get a massive amount of blood and a lot of proteins and all the good stuff that it needs afterwards, but we're in this westernized situation where now all of a sudden your baby's born, they clamp the cord and they're very quick to detach the baby from the mother. But I wanted to be really kind of natural about it, so I stayed in the birthing pool for an hour after having my daughter, and we delayed the cord clamping until there was no more pulse, there was no more blood, it was completely white. It was, you know, she wasn't getting anything more from it before we cut the cord. I chose not to have the vitamin K injection. Again, that is something that a lot of people choose. For me personally, I decided not to, and I've got my own reasons for doing that. So it was just, and I didn't have the injection, sorry, and they give you, you know, to give birth to your after birth, your placenta. I chose not to do that either. Again, I wanted it very natural. I had a natural birth. I wanted a natural experience here. So I sort of give birth to the placenta naturally. It came away, and it was outstanding because I didn't get to do that first time. It was kind of ripped out of me. There was a lot going on. So this time, for my body to, after an hour of having a baby, for it to get this contraction again, I was like, oh God, here it comes. And that experience alone was really outstanding. Within 5 minutes of me giving birth to my daughter and being in this birthing pool, my father-in-law had been through the house and he kind of heard me being a little bit tribal, and there was no screaming, shouting or swearing. It was just the noise of pushing a baby out, so it was more like a cow mooing. So he'd gone upstairs and got Sophie for my stepdaughter to come down, and she literally came in the room as the baby was just coming out, so she was there the second that she was in the world. It was just awesome, and it's what we wanted. We really wanted her to be part of it, so that was awesome. And within a couple of minutes I was like, right, can I get a cup of tea and a biscuit? Honest to God, there was no pain, there was no like shaking, there was no trauma. I was just, right, can I get a cup of tea? And everybody was like, yeah, okay. And I was just chilled. So I was able to sit in the pool with the baby. Everybody was coming in and meeting her. Like my father-in-law got to come in and meet her. She had her first feed in the water with me. It was just so chilled out. It was so lovely. We got out of the pool after I had delivered the placenta, which we've kept. We were going to bury it. And again, it was never in my intention. It's something that Georgina had spoke about with us. Like, what do you want to do with it? And I'm like, well, you just bin it. She's like, no, there's so many things you can do with it. So we chose that because we were building a house.
Hi, look.
Who's that? So we chose to bury it and have a tree planted just to commemorate the whole experience and the whole birth and stuff. I know it's proper hippie and it is really like minging to think about it, but it's in a medical waste bin in my freezer right now. And it's probably the most grossest thing that you can think of, but that's our situation. So we're waiting until the house is done and we're going to bury it under the tree, and we just know that that's part of Everleigh's beginning, because I am a proper hippie. So the placenta's out. This is when I got out of the birthing pool and I was able to go from the pool over onto my sofa. Your midwives do your checks, make sure everything's fine. I had a couple of grazes, which is awesome. Now, bear in mind, the whole pregnancy, they kept saying small baby, small baby, small baby. Our scans, small baby, small baby. We determined she was going to be a small baby, but she was 7 pounds 4. She was the biggest out of all our kids. Tyler James was 6'3" and 3/4. Sophie was 6'3 and a half. I think that's right. And Everleigh was the biggest out of all of them. 48 centimeters long as well. She was huge. So I had a couple of grazes. We were just chilling. It was so nice. I was in my own space. I could go for a shower when I wanted. Scott made everybody tea and toast. Everybody was getting a bosey. We'd gone and woken Tyler James up at this point. He came to meet the baby. It was just, I was chilling with my jammies on, having tea and toast. It was so nice. And the midwives had to kind of come over. Now, the whole time we were pregnant with names for boys and girls, but Scott was determined if it was a girl, he wanted to call her Delta. and he thought he was going to win that one. And he came over, the midwife, Therese, had said to him, right, before I leave, is there a name for this baby? I want to know who this is. And Scott had said, he came over to me and he went, he's like, listen, after what I've just seen, after everything you've just done, like, you did all the work, like, you can have the name that you want. And the name I wanted was Everly Vane. So he'd basically let me win the war, and I was like, right, well, you know what I want. And so he announced her to the room, to everybody, and it was just really, it was so nice. It was just, like, my brother-in-law Ross, when we sent out a text message and let him know the baby was here, he'd finished his night shift, went home, got changed and drove all the way out to our house to come. Boy hadn't even slept yet, and he came out to meet her and to be with us. You know, I was in my jammies the whole day, but ordered pizza in. Where we live, you don't get takeaways. Like, the only thing is this manky pizza place, and the pizza was totally rubbish. But we ordered a pizza in, we just chilled and ate pizza on the bed. So we just, it was so relaxed, and it wasn't, my body didn't feel in pain, and I kept saying that over and over, and I was like, I'm not in a lot of pain, like, I don't feel like I've just had a baby. It was so bizarre, but I now, obviously I know that it's because my body was so relaxed the whole time, my muscles weren't tense. So instead of having hours of labouring and you're like tensed up and sore, I was so relaxed, I was so chilled out that my body didn't feel like I'd been through anything. So I was so comfortable, you know, like, in the morning, I was up with the baby, went through and woke Sophie, like, got the baby sister to wake her for school, went and woke Tyler James. We were up, we were all having breakfast together. Scott took the kids down for Tyler's school, then drove Sophie to her school. And then when he came home, it's now on the 28th, she was born the 27th, which was her great grandma, so Scott's grandma's birthday. It was her 80th, so Everly was born on her 80th. The next day is Carol's birthday, so on the 28th, I was dressed, baby was organised, we went away to Asda, getting, like, we got a birthday card and stuff, and then went and visited our house. Like, I was just walking about like I was just, you know, like nothing had happened. It was just, because of how an amazing experience the birth was, my physical, like, my body was just so relaxed. I wasn't sore, I wasn't in a lot of discomfort, so it was so beneficial. I had the best experience because of how the labour was, if that makes sense. So overall, to summarise, it was the most outstanding birth I could ever imagine. It was everything I wanted, it was everything I could have wished for. I had the perfect setting, you know, we were looking outside and the roof windows of my house, you could just see the stars. I had my fireplace on. Everything for me was just beautiful, and ever since I've had her, from the second that I gave birth, I've had this overwhelming sense to do it again. I've constantly been like, is anybody else this obsessed after giving birth to do it again? I would love to experience that over and over again. I wouldn't change anything about it. It was the most perfect, empowering situation ever. Like, and I'm such an advocate for hypnobirthing now, as well as home birthing, but for hypnobirthing especially, the whole experience was so powerful. And that's me going from thinking, I don't think this is going to work for me, to thinking, holy shit, like, how have I been able to disconnect from any sort of pain and just take myself through this process, really allowing my body to do what it's naturally meant to do. And it's honestly the most outstanding situation I've ever been in my life. Like, I cannot articulate it correctly how much of an amazing experience it was. So that is my birth story. I apologise for the editing, but I was waffling, so Scott's having to trim it down quite a lot. But any questions about anything I've mentioned, from endometriosis to, you know, pregnancy losses, to the hypnobirthing, to the pool hire, anything like that, just give me a shout and I can direct you to the Facebook groups, to the right support, or to more information if you want to learn more about certain things. So just feel free to drop me a message and I can help anybody out. So yeah, thank you very much to Sauna Mums and to the Home Birth Aberdeen group, because without you guys, I probably wouldn't have had this experience.